just a hack. He's just an absolute hack. And he gets his ass kicked by his teammates every week. It's just, it's terrible. It's just terrible.
Welcome back here on Hack City. I am Joe DeLeone, joined by my former teammate, former roommate from the University of Rhode Island, Mr. Sean Anderson. Today we've got a defensive back episode, the last of these position breakdown shows. And then later on the week, we've got a fantastic interview with an FBS coach, one of the best young minds in coaching, as well as our previews for week 0. So make sure you stay tuned for that and you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of those episodes, whether it's on YouTube or wherever you find your pods. Sean's in a really good mood today, and it kind of pisses me off. Sean, how are you
I'm
doing?
in a good mood. You know, I was pretty bummed out after coming back from vacation on Monday. You know, Sunday, the big travel day. That stinks as always. But Tuesday, finally getting some bearings. And I haven't really gotten to see you in about, 10 days,
It was
12 days.
It was a pleasant 10 days not having to
So
do
it's
it.
always nice to see you in the same shirt that it's great. I get to come back to some normalcy.
Shut up.
Hey,
Don't act
do you
like
this
don't act like
Giannis
you don't wear
shirt. Yeah, Joe, it's cool.
You're the worst. How was the trip? Because we had some speculation from some of our listeners on what you were doing during the trip, and we don't need to get into the disturbing details.
Sure.
But how was the trip before we get into these DBs?
It was a very good trip. I was happy with it. Ibiza, very vain part of the world, but it's fun to be part of that vanity for 3-4 days and go on the boats and go to the clubs. And I'm not a Calvin Harris fan, but I thought he put on a really good show. Like it was cool. And I'm not even a house music fan, but it started to grow on me a little bit, maybe because I was really in the environment. But I mean, it was great. I mean, beaches were great. Water was super clear. Berlin, didn't really like Berlin. Berlin was okay. It was just
why?
It was just okay. I don't know. It just didn't. It didn't.
I got nothing going on in Germany.
It didn't do anything for me.
There.
Berlin did. I mean, there was a day where I got to drink it at a beer hall during the day, eat some sausages. It was good. That was good. But some of the other stuff, it was just like, wasn't my scene. And then everybody should be graced by God that I returned from the Netherlands. Amsterdam, I really considered it. I don't know what I'd do. I'd probably just like park boats or be a bar back. There's a big town square where all the chairs get stacked up at night. I think I could do that pretty well.
You can't park boats. Half of the boats you would take down with
I was on a boat. I did good on the boat.
Okay, was it a barge? Because someone's little speedboat, you're not going to be able to get on and off without taking it down.
It was like a little tour boat, and then this captain was awesome. He was just He was the only one blaring his horn in all the canals. All these rubes were out there on their smaller boats, and he was just getting so frustrated having to basically do U-turns within the canal in like this 50-footer. He was a badass.
So it was a barge.
It was not a barge. It was not a barge. It was not a Tyrone barge. Okay.
I see that immediately came into my head too. I'm glad you didn't sink any boats. I think that would have been real.
It's just a great city. I did extend the invitation next year to Joe to see if he would want to come and
yeah, you didn't extend it this year, but thank you. I appreciate the after the fact.
No. It's not what it is. It's not.
I see your friend group. Your friend group's slowly being less and less willing to go do things, and like maybe some of them this trip were like, oh, I can't go next year or something like that. So now you're like, oh, now I need to go down to the D list of the friend group. I'll invite Joe and see if he wants to come. No, I get it. I'm not on the priority.
Well, your last name is DeLeone, starts with D, so it could make sense there. Yeah. So no. Look.
Apparently, Sesame Street. This show is brought to you by the letter D. What were we gonna say?
You went to Italy and you hated it, and I said, okay, Joe must not like Europe that much.
That wasn't it. I was just there for too long. I can't do the 10-day trip thing.
I wasn't there for long enough.
After 5.
I wasn't on vacation long enough.
I don't operate like that.
I gotcha. I understand.
But it's not even a vacation thing. It's just like being away from home in a completely foreign setting that far from home is just too long. It is a little unsettling. You're like, oh geez, I just want to get back to I want to sleep in my real bed. I want to, be able to, there's a semblance of normalcy that you miss out on, but
I don't know. I feel like I'll have plenty of normalcy in my 30s, and then that'll be fine for me. But right now, it felt like a good trip to go just get a fresh start right before the college football season, right before it, as we have week 0 just looming.
Yes.
Can't wait.
Yeah, you came back with perfect timing. We've got these games coming up, and again, as I said, we're going to be doing an FCS and FBS preview for the games. Week 0 is exciting, but also a little unexciting because there's not like any big matchups. But still, we get football this week.
Like
so
Navy's going to win. USC is going to win.
All right, all right. Shut the hell up.
What?
Shut the
What'd
hell
I
up.
say?
Let's get into these.
What'd I do?
Let's get into these defensive backs. You know exactly what you said. So today, Sean. On today's episode, we are talking about DBs. It's the last group that we have to get to. And as we've done so far, we've done P5, we've done G5, and we've done FCS. I'm going to start us off with my first FBS player, that being Kalyn King, the Penn State DB. I watched his tape and I fell in love. He is one of my highest graded players in the 2024 NFL draft class. He has got ridiculous recovery speed. He is such a fluid, instinctual, easy athlete. He is one of the few guys that I have watched actually put up a serious fight against Marvin Harrison Jr., which, that doesn't really mean it's an actual fight because Marvin Harrison Jr. can make ridiculous catches in tight windows. But King, man, love everything he brings to the table. He is going to be one of the top guys selected this upcoming year and is still going to be a reason why Penn State's defense is tough to score points on. Make sure you check out BetOnline for all of your sports betting needs. For anything that I do betting related, I go on over to betonline.ag and I use promo code BELIEVE50. BetOnline has all of the latest updated odds for the NFL and college football seasons. Anything you need, whether it's futures, live in-game betting, no matter what, your football betting needs are met at BetOnline. And again, make sure you use that promo code BELIEVE50, BLEAV50 to get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Yeah, King, it's tough to play second fiddle when you're as good as Kalen King, but when you have Joey Porter Jr. aside from you last season,
he wasn't second
when you're playing,
fiddle. Joey Porter Jr. was second fiddle.
I'm sure he was. I'm sure. Let's see where King gets drafted this year. Regardless, Kalen King, very good selection for you. I mean, he's just talented. He's an all-around DB. I think for DBs, you need to be a lead in coverage or a thumper. I'd prefer if you did both. I'm looking for a first 6 years Jalen Ramsey, and I know he can still drop the boom. And if you want to knock that down a grade, like AJ Terrell, who is not afraid to throw his helmet in on a tackle and is good in coverage, like just find me something like that, or give me something in leading coverage. And Kalen King can work in all those realms, so I think that's a good pick for you. My first FBS P5 defensive back, Will Johnson from Michigan. Very similarly to you, he was a freshman last year, locking dudes down. It just comes naturally to him. It's just a position where it comes naturally to him. I'm sure you could put him out wide at wide receiver. He'd be good. But he's built to play defensive back. His legs are built to play defensive back. His arms are, everything just looks defensive back with him, and his play style resembles that. It reflects it. He just does not. I'll use some 15-year-old Twitter terms. He doesn't miss. He's just a guy that does not miss on the field, and he's just. How do you get better sophomore year? How do you get better from freshman year to sophomore year? I'm excited to see, because I can't imagine a step back for him. I just can't. He's a very good talent for Michigan on defense.
Yeah, Michigan's deceptively got just so many good defensive players, and I think this is probably one of the few underclassmen guys that we have on this list. But yeah, I watched the opposite corner that they have. I watched some of their safeties. I'm a big Rod Moore fan, but
Rod Moore almost made it for me.
But they got a lot of dudes, man. That team is good, and I like that Will Johnson selection, getting a younger guy into the mix. Guy that's not a younger guy, Kam Kinchens from Miami. I think that's that's obviously the way that you pronounce it, but I always make the mistake, and I think a lot of people think it's Kitchens, but it's not. Kam Kinchens from Miami is another player that I watched, was really juiced up about. I recently did my safety show with Ryan, and he was my number one safety on my board because of the ball skills. The guy's a good athlete. He's a slightly above average athlete. He's not a crazy twitchy athlete like the guy that we're going to talk about that you wrote down, But Kinchens has just amazing instincts when reading the football in the air, reacting to routes, knowing how to play them to make plays on the ball, to pick the ball off. This is a ball hawking safety. This is a guy who is going to make plays every single game. It's very rare that when you're watching multiple games of film on a player, that both games he has interceptions, and that ended up happening for me. So I think that his production is only going to go up. I got to say this, and I said this on Twitter a little bit to Colin, that I think some people are sleeping on Miami because they've got a lot of good athletes, and Kinchens is one of those dudes. By the way, Colin is now engagement farming on all of my posts. He is going and commenting all of his graphics under my graphics in order to get engagement on his stuff. So I respect it, man. It's the one thing that pisses me off, but I respect it, Colin.
You know what? He's got to grind. You got to. I also respect that grind. Thank you for doing it to Joe's posts. That would be great if that.
Yeah, you don't post anything, so there's nothing to do to you.
I've been a little bit busy eating spare ribs and schnitzel. My second P5 defensive back, a little tricky for me. I see it, but it's a little tricky. And there's one play that guys kill him for online against Utah, where you missed a tackle. It was a bad flub. It happens. That's Kalyn Bullock from USC, and he's got the tools. He's got them. There's you see it where he's playing center field, and it just looks like everyone else is in slow motion, and he's seeing the entire play before it happens, and you're like, wow, this looks like a center fielder tracking the ball, and he's making the play, and it just looks so smooth. He looks smooth, and then there's times where it's just where I'm like, and maybe it's just because he's good enough where it doesn't seem like he has like Kam Kinchens. So it looks like he plays with some urgency. Like when at the beginning of the snap, urgent. And not everyone plays like that. But that's something that sticks out in my mind of he's prepared for the play, ready to make the play, and it's not just a couple highlights that we all keep seeing. I'm hoping you can sell me a little more on Kalyn Bullock. I think that he has all the potential in the world of being a dominant safety in college football and a very good safety in the NFL. But it was a little bit tricky. And I think it's a guy that we need to look out for because they can't all be, this is a certified dude that we're going at. It's going to be an interesting player to see for Bullock and USC this year, just to see what happens.
I liked Bullock. Bullock was actually my second-ranked safety. Here's my thing with him, and you kind of hit on it by talking about the Utah play. That he's not physical. He doesn't like to hit.
But what about the Washington State hit? That's the one.
Right.
Yeah.
But he's 6'3", and he's probably going to run low 4.4s, maybe even faster than that. Like, he is a stupid athlete, and he's like a receiver playing safety. Like, he has those types of ball skills to track the football and make plays on the ball, and he was one of the most productive. He's the perfect epitome of USC's performance last year because they had a lot of turnovers, but they gave up a lot of big plays because nobody wanted to tackle in that secondary. But still, good football player. I think that his upside is tremendous if he nuts up and he decides to hit some people.
Like, he feels more like a Dolphin safety than a Raven safety, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that does.
Okay,
that
gotcha. That's just kind of where I was coming for it.
My first G5 defensive back is Jere Williams from UNLV. He is a nickel back. I don't know what his role is going to be this year for the Rebels. Not often that we're picking a UNLV player for these lists, but I was pleasantly surprised when watching Williams. I thought that he moves pretty fluidly in coverage. He's just one of those really consistent slot guys that just knows how to keep slot receivers in front of him, tight ends in front of him. Also some ball skills that he shows on tape. And he's somebody that I gave a moderately, not like a high, but I gave him a draftable grade when I graded him during this summer scouting series. So Williams, underrated player. I don't think gets enough love.
Yeah, it's tough playing nickel in college. It's tough because it's like, oh, you're not an undersized outside guy that's going to move to nickel at the next level, which happens a good amount. But if you can become a technician, I mean, who's buddy from the Bengals, Mike Hilton? He has made a great name for himself as a nickel defensive back and just been a huge part of that defense. So Very underrated position, and a position that a lot of people overlook in college. So I'm glad you gave some notoriety for that. My first G5 defensive back here, Yam Banks, safety for South Alabama. Surprised Joe didn't take it because Yam Banks, he normally goes with the name. I really like this dude. Very, very fluid. 6 picks last year. 6 picks lets me know he gets picked on a little bit. Maybe we're just going to keep on trying. I'm not a true shutdown defensive back, but makes the plays. Obviously, everyone's going to remember the big one-handed interception that he had. It was very impressive, but I'm impressed with the way that he tackles behind the line of scrimmage. I like the way that he goes and covers a screen. I like the way that he approaches seeing a running back go out in the flat, saying, okay, the ball's going there. I'm going there. He's decisive. I like that. He is very reactive also. My second guy, a little bit more reactive, but Yam Banks, very, very solid for South Alabama. Expecting another good year. He's just the guy on their defense. He's the guy on their defense going to be running it, making plays.
As you might expect, Ryan Roberts is an even bigger hack than I am, and so he was all juiced up about him.
Oh, sure.
So he told me to watch him. I thought he's fine. I think he's a really good G5 safety. I have some speed concerns, but big.
It's not a fantastic recovery.
Yeah. There's a lot of times where he gives up some pretty big separation, but a pretty good big slot. I think that's what he is.
I think with safety though, you can work on that if you don't have a fantastic recovery speed, getting a better jump initially, and that's just getting more reps, reading the routes, reading the patterns, and then you can just put yourself in a better position. It's almost like playing shortstop with knowing that a guy's going to hit it 2 more feet to the left. Like get a little bit of a shift, you can cheat it a little bit.
My next G5, Malik Dixon Williams. Just a guy that's got really good feet, really, really nice trigger. I also think that his bursts and his tackling are really strong. I didn't give him a super high grade when I graded him out, but I just think that Malik Dixon Williams for a G5 player, for a G5 defensive back, these guys are plucked all the time in the portal. For him to stick around at UConn, big on his part, big on UConn's part. Just overall, just a really, really well-rounded football player, I think is the best way to put him.
Yeah, it's, Moore is doing something at UConn, man. I'm kind of...
Weird.
I mean...
He's taking all the guys that would end up at URI and then...
Exactly. It's not good for URI for UConn to be good, but it's good for UConn to be good. Well, I don't care. What do I care about UConn? It would have been fun to see him in the Big 12. I'll say that.
Yeah,
that would have
F UConn. What are we talking about?
It would have been cool to see him in the Big 12.
I don't give a damn about UConn. I mean nothing to the footprint of college football.
Well, do you give a damn about Toledo?
I do give a damn about Toledo, and I'm glad you. Geez, I can't talk.
Nice.
I'm glad you wrote down.
Who came back from vacation? Me or Joe? Doesn't matter. Quinyon Mitchell.
Shut up.
Toledo. Cornerback. Playmaker. Just absolute playmaker. Energizer also for the defense. 4 picks in a game versus Northern Illinois. Okay, 4 picks in a game. I'm concerned about the other 2 picks, and I'm concerned about the hits that he's levying on wide receivers. I like that. He is going to get your defense buzzing. If your defense is flat, he is going to get your defense going. He's going to make a play to do that. Every defense needs a guy. Maybe he's not the best player on defense. Maybe he's not. I think he's the best player on Toledo's defense. But every defense, every level needs one dude that can just lay a hit, make a pick, huge pass breakup on 3rd down. That's what Quinyon Mitchell does. I like his frame also, 6 feet, 200. God, you're not seeing a ton of DBs now under 6 foot. I don't mind it, though. You got to keep up with the tall receivers. I think he does. And I think he reads quarterbacks' eyes very well. Very patient. He might get hurt a little bit on zones and under routes, like a hitch. But if it's a delay, if the quarterback's getting pressure, he's going to jump the hitch and take it for 6. But a typical well-rounded defense, I think he get beat by the zone a little bit. Man, he does fine. But I'm happy Quinyon Mitchell is coming back and staying at Toledo.
He's somebody's name who's been brought up a lot in draft circles. And I can see it. He's got a great frame. He's got good length. I think all those boxes are checked. Some people have tried to make him out to be a 1st-round pick. I don't see that, but just a really nice football player and is going to get drafted probably moderately early, somewhere within the top 150 picks is more of a realistic projection. I'm so glad that we got to the DB show because I've been wanting to talk about this guy for so long. Rex Connors from UC Davis. I discovered this guy. Actually, you were in my apartment. You were sitting on my couch and I was watching this dude play.
You were
This
giddy.
dude is so freaking fun to watch. Just a underrated FCS player. We don't find a lot of moderately draftable FCS prospects, but like Rex Connors for me checks that damn box. I love the way that he plays. Just really good angles. Just knows how to get to the football, make plays, tackle. He can cover sideline to sideline. This isn't a 4-3 athlete. Absolutely not. But I just think that the general range that he brings to the position is really, really nice. So I am really in on Rex Connors. I think more people need to talk about him from a draft perspective. And if you're an FCS fan, make note of Rex Connors.
I'm glad you included him because I know how critical. Like me and Joe will get on a call, and Joe will be like, "Oh, hey, I watched this film. Who are you watching?" They'll send it over, and then we'll just crush this guy back and forth for 5 minutes. It's just gonna be bad. But when there's a guy like Rex Connors that's kind of playing the position, doing the fun things, seeing Joe show a little bit of emotion towards it is good, and you got to know that it's a meaningful selection for him. My first selection for FCS, a guy that I love this defensive back, Miles Harden from South Dakota. He's just a guy that you see on the field. He looks for the FCS level like he could be an outside linebacker, but he's out there on the edge. He's fast enough. He's got good feet. Hopefully in the offseason, and the development carries on. You do the drills, you get more polished. He just needs a little bit of polish, and he's going to be a very, very good defensive back. Really big fan of Harden.
Yeah, Harden's another one of those guys whose name has popped up on these preseason NFL draft circles. Maybe he ends up being like a Senior Bowl invite type guy. The frame is always like a big thing for me when we're talking about FCS G5 players. Is like, are they built to play in the NFL, or are they a miniature? But that's not the word I'm looking for. The undersized warrior.
Yeah.
That's the word I'm looking for. Like a guy that's small, but's kicking butt, but's not going to make it in the NFL. It's these guys that are big, rangy, and maybe we're under recruited like Harden.
There was a Central Arkansas defensive back that was like 6'3". I think he went to the Rams.
Oh, it's awesome.
Robert
Rochelle.
Yes, Rochelle. That's kind of a wow. Why didn't we recruit him? Look at him. And maybe it was a late growth spurt, something like that. But he gives me a little bit of vibes of Rochelle, where it's just a great athlete playing out in space.
Now, Dyshawn Gales from South Dakota State is not as big as some of these guys that we're talking about. He's listed at 5'11", 190 on the leaner side, but continues to fit that trend that we keep talking about with these South Dakota State football players, Sean, that they're just so consistent. They're so well-rounded, veteran players, and he was a preseason All-American for a reason. He is going to get brought up in these conversations at the end of the season for some of these awards as well. Again, when in doubt, if you need a player, go find a South Dakota State guy that has played multiple seasons and is going to provide an impact.
Okay, my last guy, Khalil Baker, NC Central defensive back, just a very electric, get-in-your-face safety. It reminds me of some of the defensive backs that were on that. It might have been 2019 Southeastern Louisiana team. All kind of undersized, all just mean as hell. Don't come across the middle. If you catch it, I'm going to try to punch the ball out, or I'm going to try to put you in the dirt. Really enjoy that mentality from my safeties. Really enjoy his ball tracking skills. I think he has good recovery speed. I wish he would not have to recover as much. It's a little bit like, if you have the great recovery speed, I don't like DBs resting on their laurels of saying, oh, I can always get there. Because at the next level, you can't always get there. And if you're playing guys with elite speed, you're not always going to get there. So being able to be technically sound with your first and second reads of what the quarterback is doing, where he's looking, and just letting your body move, like he can do that. I just need it just one beat quicker. One beat quicker, get there. You're not recovering. You're all on top of the ball. You're right there. Other than that, man, he brings energy to the defense. He's not. We have gotten to the point where Kam Chancellor is the first thing you think of when you think enforcer over the middle as a safety. The DBs aren't all built like Kam Chancellor, so you got to be an enforcer in other ways. I still believe that Khalil Baker is that, but he comes in a bit of a smaller frame of comparatively what you would think a true enforcer is for a safety position.
NC Central has quietly produced a lot of NFL caliber defensive players and just players in general. They have not got a lot of recognition for it, and they definitely deserve it. And I think Khalil Baker could be one of those next guys. You talked about a lot of those reasons there, that he's just really nice instincts. Always tries to find the football. The athleticism is promising. So really like that Baker pick. That's a good note to wrap us up on. At Joe DeLeone at Sanderson Radio. We'll be back later this week with 3 more shows, so stay tuned in.